The room went silent when the blue light filled the hall. Everyone stopped talking. Deho stood at the front of the room and watched as the alien appeared before them. It looked like a tall crystal that changed colors as it moved. The alien was from the Galactic Council, and it had come with a message. The alien's voice came from everywhere at once. It was cold and hard. The alien said that the Council had been watching Earth for 3 years. They did not like what they saw. Humans were building too many ships. Humans were moving to too many planets. The Council had made a decision. Humanity must stop everything. Humans must destroy their ships. Humans must leave their colony worlds. Humans must let the Council control them. They had 30 days to obey. Gina sat in her seat and listened carefully. She was an admiral in the Earth fleet. She commanded many ships and many soldiers. Her fingers moved slowly on the arm of her chair. She was thinking about numbers. She was calculating their chances. The numbers were not good. Deho tried to speak. He was the leader of all Earth governments. He wanted to ask for more time. He wanted to talk about the demands. But the alien cut him off before he could finish. The alien said there would be no talking. The alien said there would be no negotiations. 30 days. That was all. If humans did not obey, the Council would come with their armies. They would force humanity to surrender. This was their final warning. Then the alien disappeared. The blue light faded away. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then everyone started shouting at once. Some people wanted to give up. They said the Council was too strong. They said humanity should surrender and save lives. Other people wanted to fight. They said humans should never give up their freedom. The room became chaos. Deho hit his gavel 3 times on the desk. The sound echoed through the hall. Everyone stopped shouting immediately. Deho spoke in a clear voice. He said they would have an emergency meeting. Only military leaders could attend. Everyone else had to leave the room. The hall emptied quickly. 20 minutes later, 4 people sat in a small room. Deho was there. Admiral Gina was there. General Hayek commanded all planetary defense forces. Dr. Minho ran the secret research programs. Between them was a table that showed a map of space. The map showed all the human colonies. They looked small and weak, scattered across the darkness like tiny lights. Deho looked at each person. Then he asked the question that everyone was thinking. He asked if they could win a war against the Council. He wanted the truth. Gina answered right away. She said no. She said they could not win a normal war. The Council had 400 different alien species. Even if only a small number of them attacked, humans would be badly outnumbered. For every human ship, there would be 50 alien ships. The odds were impossible. Hyuk spoke next. He said they should surrender then. There was no point in fighting a war they could not win. Better to live under Council control than to die in a hopeless battle. But Minho disagreed. He was young for such an important job. He was only 38 years old. But his eyes looked tired, like someone who had not slept well in a long time. He said there was one option the Council did not know about. He said there was a secret weapon. He called it Project Silence. Gina's eyes went wide. Hyuk's face turned pale. Deho did not change his expression, but his hands gripped the edge of the table tightly. They all knew about Project Silence. It was Earth's biggest secret. It was also their most dangerous weapon. Deho reminded Minho that the weapon was not ready yet. Minho had said so himself just 2 months ago. The project needed more time, more testing, more work. Minho nodded. He said that was true. The weapon was not ready today, but it would be ready in 29 days, just in time. Just before the deadline, the room went quiet again. Everyone understood what this meant. If they used Project Silence, there would be no going back. If it worked, humanity might survive. If it failed, humanity would be destroyed. There was no middle ground. No second chance. Deho looked at each person again. He asked if they were sure. He asked if this was really their only choice. Could they really not negotiate? Could they really not find another way? Gina spoke clearly. She said the Council had made their position obvious. They did not want to talk. They did not want compromise. They wanted complete control over humanity. They wanted humans to be servants, not equals. That was not acceptable. Hyuk agreed, despite his earlier words about surrender. He said that if humans gave up now, they would never be free again. The Council would control everything, where humans could live, what humans could do, how humans could grow. That was not a life worth living. Minho added one more thing. He said Project Silence was designed for exactly this situation. 5 years of work, 5 years of secret research, all preparing for the day when humanity would need to defend itself against impossible odds. That day had arrived. Daiho made his decision. He told Minho to prepare the weapon. He told Gina to get the fleet ready but make it look like they were preparing to surrender. He told Hayek to prepare Earth's defenses in secret. Nobody outside this room could know the truth. If the council discovered their plan, everything would fail. The meeting ended. Each person left to do their work. Daiho stayed in the room alone for a while. He looked at the map of space, at the small lights that represented human colonies. In 30 days, those lights would either shine brighter or go dark forever. Everything depended on what happened next. The countdown had begun. 30 days until the council expected an answer. 30 days to prepare for war or surrender. Publicly, Daiho told the news reporters that Earth was thinking carefully about the council's offer. He used gentle words. He talked about peace and cooperation. The council watched and believed what they saw, but it was all fake. Behind the scenes, something very different was happening. Deep under the surface of the moon, in a place that did not exist on any official map, Minho stood before the largest machine humans had ever built. It was called the Silence Array. The machine stretched for 3 kilometers through tunnels carved from moon rock. Thousands of quantum computers stood in rows like metal trees. Energy pulsed through them like lightning trapped in glass. Yoonji was Minho's assistant. She was looking at data on her tablet computer. She told Minho that they were ahead of schedule. The machine would be ready in 26 days. That gave them 4 extra days before the deadline, but Minho shook his head. He said 26 days was not enough. He told Yoonji to make it 20 days instead. They needed 6 days for testing. Real testing with real targets. They could not afford any mistakes. Yoonji looked shocked. She said that was impossible. The team was already working 20 hours a day. They were exhausted. She did not see how they could work any faster. Minho looked at her with serious eyes. He said they had to make it possible. If the Silence Array failed, humanity would not get a second chance. The council would destroy them. Every man, woman, and child on Earth would either die or become slaves. That was not acceptable. So they would work harder. They would sleep less. They would do whatever was necessary. While Minho worked on the secret weapon, Admiral Gina was preparing the fleet. To anyone watching from outside, it looked like Earth's military was shutting down. Ships returned to their home ports. Weapons were powered off. Soldiers were given time away from their duties to visit their families. But people who looked more carefully would see the truth. Every ship that came to port was immediately taken into the maintenance bays. Engineers worked day and night making repairs and upgrades. Every weapon that powered down was being replaced with newer, stronger models. Every soldier who went home was being retrained in special combat techniques. Taeyong was a ship captain. He commanded a large carrier called the Indomitable. He stood on his bridge and watched cargo containers being loaded into his ship. The official documents said the containers held food and medical supplies. But the weight was wrong. The containers were too heavy for food. They held weapons, ammunition, battle equipment. Taeyong called Gina on a private communication channel. He said his crew was asking questions. They were not stupid. They could see something was wrong. The official story did not match what they were actually doing. Gina told him to tell the crew the truth. Tell them that the Galactic Council had given humanity a choice between chains and death. Tell them that humanity was choosing neither. Tell them they were preparing to fight for their freedom. On Earth, General Hayek was moving millions of people into underground shelters. He told everyone it was a disaster preparedness drill. Earthquakes, asteroids, nuclear accidents. All possible emergencies that people should prepare for. Most civilians believed him. They packed their emergency bags and moved to the shelters when they were told to. But Hayek was doing more than just drills. He was stockpiling food that would last for years. He was storing medical supplies for every possible injury. He was preparing defenses around every major city. If the war came to Earth itself, they would be ready. A young officer named Jiwon found Hayek working in his office at 3 in the morning. She told him he should rest. He had been working for 18 hours straight without a break. Hyuk did not look up from his papers. He said he would rest when the war was over. He would rest when humanity had won. He would rest when he was dead. Until then, there was too much work to do. The days passed quickly. 25 days left. 20 days. 15 days. Each day brought them closer to the moment of truth. The Galactic Council watched Earth through their spy satellites and sensors. They saw exactly what they expected to see. They saw a species preparing to surrender. They saw ships returning home. They saw people moving to shelters. They saw all the signs of a civilization accepting its fate. The council members were pleased with themselves. They had been right about humanity. These primitive apes understood that resistance was pointless. Soon Earth would belong to the council. Human technology would be studied. Human worlds would be divided among the council species. Everything was going according to plan. But the council did not know about the silence array. They did not know about the secret preparations. They did not know that every human action was carefully planned to deceive them. On day 20, Minho ran the final tests on the silence array. The machine worked perfectly. It generated a field that could extend across millions of kilometers of space. Inside that field, alien technology would simply stop working. Ships would lose power. Weapons would fail. Shields would collapse. But human technology would continue functioning normally because it used different quantum frequencies. Yunji looked at the test results with tired but happy eyes. They had done it. They had completed the impossible task. The weapon was ready ahead of schedule. Minho allowed himself a small smile. Then he got back to work. Ready was not the same as perfect. He spent the next 9 days checking every system 3 times. He made small adjustments. He prepared backup plans for every possible failure. When the moment came, nothing would go wrong. On day 29, with only 1 day remaining before the deadline, the 4 leaders met again. Daeho asked each person for their status report. Minho reported that the silence array was ready. Gina reported that the fleet was prepared for battle. Hyuk reported that all civilians were in shelters and all defenses were active. Daeho looked at each of them. Tomorrow he would give Earth's answer to the council. Tomorrow everything would change. He asked them one final time if they were certain this was the right choice. Was there really no other way? All 3 answered the same way. No, there was no other way. The council wanted slaves, not partners. They wanted submission, not cooperation. Humanity would never accept that. Better to fight and die free than to live as prisoners. Daeho nodded. He told them to prepare for his broadcast tomorrow. He would give the council their answer, and the galaxy would learn what it meant when humanity said no. Day 29 arrived. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The Galactic Council gathered in their massive meeting sphere. It was huge, big enough to hold representatives from 400 different species. Thousands of aliens filled the chamber. Some looked like insects. Some looked like crystals. Some looked like clouds of gas held in special containers. All of them were waiting to hear Earth's surrender. The Velk ambassador took its position at the center of the chamber. Its crystal body glowed with many colors. Around it, the Nexar military observers relaxed in their seats. They were bored. This meeting was just a formality. Obviously, the humans would surrender. What else could they do? The Krell diplomats were already talking among themselves about how to divide Earth's colonies. Which species would get which planets? How much would Earth pay in tribute each year? These were the important questions now. Then Daeho's image appeared on the central screen. Every alien in the chamber stopped talking. They all turned to look. Daeho stood alone in a simple gray suit. No other humans stood with him. No advisors, no guards. Just one man representing all of humanity. Behind him, through large windows, Earth could be seen rotating slowly in space. Blue oceans. White clouds. Green and brown land. Beautiful and peaceful. Daeho's voice was calm and clear. He said he spoke for all humans everywhere. He was here to give the council their answer to the ultimatum. The Velk ambassador leaned forward slightly. Victory was so close. Soon the troublesome humans would be under control. Then Daeho spoke one word. Just one word that changed everything. No, the word hung in the air like a thunderclap. The chamber went completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The Velk ambassador seemed confused. It spoke slowly, as if it had misunderstood. It asked Daeho to repeat his answer. Daeho repeated the word clearly. No. Then he explained what it meant. Humanity would not dismantle their fleet. Humanity would not abandon their colonies. Humanity would not accept council oversight. The council had threatened them with subjugation. So humanity was choosing war instead. The chamber exploded into chaos. Aliens shouted in 100 different languages. The Nexar observers sat up straight, their boredom replaced by shock. Even the Krell stopped talking about dividing Earth's territory. Everyone was stunned. The Velk's crystal body turned dark red. Those who knew their species recognized this as extreme anger. The ambassador's voice became harsh and loud. It told Deho that he was being foolish. Earth had 5 billion people. The Council had trillions. Earth had 200 ships. The Council had 50,000. This was not courage. This was suicide. Deho's face showed no emotion. His voice was cold as ice. He said perhaps the Velk was right. Perhaps it was suicide. But humanity was young. Humans did not know how to surrender. Humans had never learned to kneel before anyone. And they would not start now. He paused to let his words sink in. Then he continued speaking. He told the Council to come for Earth if they dared. But they should understand something important. Humans were not frightened prey. Humans were not weak victims waiting to be conquered. Humans were something the Council had never encountered before. And humans did not die quietly. The transmission ended. Deho's image disappeared from the screen. For 3 full seconds, the Council chamber was absolutely silent. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The shock was too great. Then a Nexar observer stood up. It was huge, over 4 meters tall, covered in thick armor. Its species had conquered 100 worlds. It had crushed 100 civilizations. One more would be easy. The Nexar growled its orders. Mobilize all fleets. Gather all forces. They would end this human rebellion with one massive strike. Earth would burn. The colonies would be destroyed. Humanity would learn what happened when primitive species defied the Council. The Krell diplomats clicked their agreement. The Velk ambassador pulsed with cold determination. All around the chamber, delegates from 400 species voted for war. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would be destroyed. Orders went out across the galaxy. The great fleets began to gather. The Nexar Armada, the Krell battle groups, the Velk warships, thousands and thousands of vessels, each one powerful enough to destroy a planet, all moving toward one target, Earth. The Council was confident. How could they not be? The numbers were so clearly in their favor. Humanity had no chance. This would be over quickly, but none of the Council members had noticed something important. None of them had seen the small smile on Deho's face just before the transmission ended. It had been there for less than a second. But it had been there. The smile of someone who knew a secret. The smile of someone who had set a trap. The smile of someone who was not afraid. The Council did not know about the silence array hidden beneath the lunar surface. They did not know that human technology had been specifically designed to survive its effects. They did not know that Admiral Gina's fleet was not retreating, but preparing. Most importantly, they did not understand what it truly meant when Deho said humans did not die quietly. The Council was about to learn a lesson that would echo across the galaxy for generations. They were about to learn that humanity had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. While other species explored and built and created, humans had fought, nation against nation, tribe against tribe, always fighting, always improving their weapons, always learning new ways to kill. The Council had threatened the wrong species. In his office on Earth, Deho watched the news reports. Every channel showed the same story. The Council was gathering its forces. War was coming. Earth would soon be under attack. Some humans were afraid. Some were angry. Some were both. But all of them were ready. The drills had worked. The preparations were complete. Humanity would face this threat together. Deho received a message from Admiral Gina. The fleet was in position. Dr. Minho reported the silence array was armed and ready. General Hayuk confirmed all defense systems were active. Everything was ready. Now they just had to wait for the Council to make their move. The trap was set. Soon they would see if it would work. Deho looked up at the stars and spoke quietly to himself. He said the Council had given their last warning. Now humanity would give theirs. And it would be cold. So very cold. The Nexar Armada gathered in the Arcturus sector of space. It was the largest military force ever assembled. 15,000 warships, each one the size of a small city. Their hulls were covered with weapons, missiles, energy cannons, plasma torpedoes. Each ship had enough firepower to destroy a planet. The Nexar had used this armada to crush 100 civilizations over the past 1,000 years. Every species that had defied the Council had faced this fleet. None had survived. Humanity would be number 101. Admiral Gina watched the enemy fleet from her command ship, light years away. Her tactical display showed the Nexar ships as blue dots on a star map. There were so many dots that they almost covered the entire screen. It looked like a swarm of locusts spreading across space. Captain Taeyong stood beside her. He had served under Gina for 10 years. He trusted her completely. But even he felt fear looking at those numbers. He spoke quietly, saying the enemy was not even trying to hide. They wanted humanity to see their strength. They wanted to terrify Earth into surrendering. Gina smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was cold and sharp like a knife. She said, "Good. Let the enemy be confident. Confident enemies make mistakes. Overconfident enemies make fatal mistakes." Taeyong hesitated before asking his next question. He wanted to know if they were really going to fight all those ships. All 15,000 of them. With only 200 human vessels, Gina's smile became even colder. She said no. They were not going to fight the enemy fleet. They were going to destroy it. Completely. There was a difference. On the moon, hidden beneath the surface, Dr. Minho was running the final tests on the silence array. The massive machine hummed with power. The air itself seemed to vibrate. Engineers and technicians worked at hundreds of control stations, checking every system one last time. Yoonji approached with her tablet. Her hands were shaking slightly. She reported that all simulations were complete. The silence array would work exactly as designed. The probability of success was 83%. Minho asked about the other 17%. What happened if the array failed? Yoonji's voice shook as she explained. If the array failed, the energy backlash would destroy the moon. Everyone in the facility would die instantly. There would be no warning, no time to escape, just death. Minho placed a hand on her shoulder. He reminded her that everyone here had volunteered. They all knew the risks. They all understood what was at stake. Either they saved humanity or they died trying. There was no third option. On Earth, deep beneath the Swiss Alps, General Hughes stood in the Strategic Command bunker. Holographic displays surrounded him, showing every military asset humanity possessed. Ships, soldiers, weapons, defenses. It all looked so small compared to what the Council was sending. Lieutenant Ji-won stood beside him. She was watching the countdown clock. 7 hours until the Nexar fleet reached firing range. 7 hours until the war began. She asked Hyuk what would happen if the silence array did not work. What was their backup plan? Hyuk answered without looking away from his displays. He said they would fight anyway, with whatever weapons they had left, with knives and rocks if necessary. Humanity had told the Council they would not surrender, so they would fight until every last human was dead or the enemy was defeated. Those were the only two options. Chancellor Daeho sat alone in his office on Earth. The room was dark except for the light from the windows. He could see stars beginning to appear in the evening sky. Somewhere out there, the Nexar fleet was coming. He had recorded messages to his family, messages to his successor if he died, messages to whoever survived if humanity lost. He hoped nobody would ever need to watch those recordings. He thought about the Velk ambassador's words. 5 billion humans against 400 alien species, 200 ships against 50,000. The numbers were absurd. The odds were impossible. No rational person would choose to fight, but humanity had never let impossible odds stop them before. Humans had climbed the highest mountains, crossed the deepest oceans, traveled to other planets, split the atom, built artificial intelligence. Every time someone said something was impossible, humans found a way to do it anyway. This would be no different. His communication screen lit up. Admiral Gina's face appeared. She reported that the Nexar fleet was entering attack formation. They would reach firing range in less than 1 hour. Dr. Minho confirmed the silence array was ready. General Hyuk reported all ground forces were at maximum alert. Everything was ready. They were as prepared as they could possibly be. Now came the hardest part. Waiting. Daeho looked at Gina's image on the screen. He asked if she was afraid. Gina was quiet for a moment. Then she admitted that yes, she was afraid. Only a fool would not be afraid facing such odds. But fear was good. Fear kept you alert. Fear kept you sharp. Fear kept you alive, Daiho nodded. He told her it was time. Time to show the Council what happened when they threatened humanity. Time to show the galaxy that humans were not prey. Time to teach everyone a lesson they would never forget. In the Arcturus sector, the Nexar fleet commander received confirmation that all ships were in position. Targeting computers locked onto Earth's location, weapons charged to full power. Everything was ready for the attack. The commander felt satisfied. This battle would take less than an hour, maybe less than 30 minutes. The humans would be obliterated. Their cities would burn. Their colonies would be destroyed. It would be a perfect example to show other species what happened when they defied the Council. The commander gave the order. All ships prepare to fire. 15,000 warships activated their weapons. Enough firepower to destroy 100 Earths, all aimed at one small blue planet light years away. The countdown began. 30 seconds to firing. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. On the moon, Dr. Minho's hand moved to the activation console. 3 kilometers of quantum processors waited for his command. Around him, every technician stopped working. Everyone watched him. Yunji counted down the seconds. 10, 9, 8. Minho took a deep breath. This was it. Either humanity survived the next few minutes or humanity ended. Everything depended on whether the silence array worked as designed. 5, 4, 3. Minho pressed the activation button. The silence array came to life, and the galaxy would never be the same. The silence array activated. It was called silence for a very specific reason. It did not explode. It did not make any sound. It did not flash with light or shake the ground. It simply reached out across space with invisible hands and changed the rules of physics in a sphere 10,000 light-years across. Every ship in the Nexar Armada felt the effect at exactly the same moment. It was like someone had flipped a switch and turned off the universe. Weapons that were seconds from firing suddenly went dead. Plasma conduits that glowed with deadly energy became cold and dark. Energy shields that protected the ships from attack simply vanished. Propulsion systems that kept the massive vessels moving through space shut down completely. 15,000 warships, the most powerful military force ever assembled, became 15,000 very expensive pieces of metal floating helplessly in the void. On the Nexar flagship, the commander stared at his control panels in complete confusion. Every screen was dark. Every system was offline. Nothing worked. Nothing responded. It was as if technology itself had stopped existing. The commander roared for a report. His crew scrambled to understand what was happening. But there were no answers. Weapons were offline. Shields were offline. Propulsion was offline. Life support was running on backup batteries, but those would not last long. Everything that made their ships powerful was simply gone. One technician found his voice. He said it was as if the laws of physics had changed. The technology that their civilization had used for thousands of years no longer worked. It made no sense. It was impossible. But it was happening. That was when Admiral Gina's fleet arrived. 200 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Arcturus sector. They were outnumbered 75-1. Under normal circumstances, they would have been destroyed in seconds. But circumstances were not normal. The human ships had shields. The human ships had weapons. The human ships had power. Because the silence array did not affect human technology at all. Dr. Minho had spent 5 years ensuring this would work. The array was keyed specifically to human quantum signatures. Human power systems. Human technology. Everything humans built used slightly different frequencies than alien technology. The silence array targeted those alien frequencies and shut them down completely, while leaving human systems untouched. It was the most sophisticated weapon ever created, and humanity was the only species in the galaxy it would not kill. Admiral Gina's voice came over the battle network. It was cold and clear, without any emotion. She gave her orders. All ships were free to engage the enemy. Show no mercy. The Nexar would have shown humanity none. Now they would learn what mercy meant to humans. What followed was not a battle. It was an execution. Human missiles streaked through space and found their targets with perfect accuracy. Without shields, the Nexar ships had no defense. Missiles punched through their hulls like paper. Secondary explosions rippled across each vessel as ammunition stores ignited. Railguns fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. The metal slugs tore through ship after ship. Without propulsion, the Nexar vessels could not dodge. Without weapons, they could not fight back. They could only wait to die. Energy beams sliced through the darkness, cutting alien warships into pieces. Plasma torpedoes detonated inside unshielded hulls, turning entire ships into expanding clouds of superheated gas. The Battle of Arcturus lasted 17 minutes from start to finish. 17 minutes to destroy 15,000 ships. 17 minutes to kill 3 million enemy crew members. 17 minutes to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Captain Taeyong stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched enemy capital ships die in complete silence. Space did not carry sound, so the destruction happened without noise. Massive explosions, ships breaking apart, debris spreading in all directions, all of it utterly silent. Taeyong whispered to himself, "My God, what have we done?" Admiral Gina stood beside him. She heard his words. She answered quietly, "This was not God's work. This was human work." Humanity had been pushed into a corner. Humanity had been threatened with extinction. So humanity had responded the only way it knew how, with overwhelming force, with cold efficiency, with the weapons and skills developed over 10,000 years of constant warfare. Gina continued speaking. She said humanity was done being threatened, done being treated as prey, done being seen as weak. Today the galaxy learned what humans really were, and the galaxy would never forget. When the last Nexar ship was reduced to wreckage, when the battle was truly over, Gina transmitted a message on all council frequencies. Every species in the galaxy would hear it. Every government would receive it. Every military would analyze it. She identified herself clearly. Admiral Gina of the United Earth Fleet, speaking to the Galactic Council. She told them they had sent their strongest armada to conquer humanity. She told them humanity had sent that armada home in pieces. Every ship destroyed. Every crew dead. Then she made humanity's position clear. If the Council wanted peace, humanity would accept peace. Humans did not want war. Humans did not enjoy killing. But if the Council wanted war, they needed to understand something important. Humanity would not stop fighting. Humanity would not grow tired. Humanity would not surrender. Not now, not ever. If the Council sent more fleets, humanity would destroy those too. If the Council sent armies, humanity would defeat them. If the Council tried to exterminate Earth, humanity would make sure the Council fell first. Gina finished her message with one final statement. Humanity had just begun to fight. The Council had seen only a tiny fraction of what humans could do. If they wanted to see more, humanity would be happy to demonstrate. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, on 400 different worlds, 400 different species heard that message and felt something they had not felt in a very long time. Fear. On the moon, Dr. Minho shut down the silence array. The massive machine powered down safely. No explosions. No catastrophic failures. Everything had worked exactly as designed. The 83% probability had been enough. Around him, technicians and engineers cheered. They had done it. They had saved humanity. They had changed the course of history, but Minho did not cheer. He sat down at his console and put his head in his hands. He thought about the 3 million aliens who had died. 3 million individuals with families, with lives, with dreams. All gone because of the weapon he had built. Yoonji sat beside him. She understood what he was feeling. She reminded him that those 3 million had come to kill 5 billion. They had come to destroy Earth, to conquer humanity, to enslave every human in the galaxy. Minho nodded slowly. He knew she was right, but that did not make it easier. He had always believed in science, in knowledge, in using technology to build and create. Today he had used his knowledge to destroy on a scale never before seen. Yoonji squeezed his shoulder gently. She said that because of him, humanity would survive. Children would grow up free. Earth would remain independent. That was worth the price. That was worth everything. Minho hoped she was right. 48 hours after the Battle of Arcturus, the Galactic Council met again. The same massive chamber. The same representatives from 400 species. But everything felt different now. The chamber felt smaller somehow, even though its size had not changed. The confidence that had filled this room just days ago was gone. Instead, there was fear, uncertainty, shock. The Velk ambassador stood at the center. Its crystal body had lost its bright glow. It looked dull and gray. Around the chamber, delegates who had voted so enthusiastically for war now sat in stunned silence. A new Nexar observer spoke first. The previous one had died with the fleet at Arcturus. This one's voice was hollow and empty. It reported the numbers. 15,000 ships destroyed. 3 million crew dead. The largest military defeat in Nexar history, all in 17 minutes. The Nexar asked the question everyone was thinking. How? How had 200 human ships destroyed 15,000 Nexar warships? How had humanity done the impossible? The Krell diplomat answered. Its usual arrogance was completely gone, replaced by obvious fear. The Krell had studied the battle data. They had analyzed what little information survived. The humans had developed a weapon that the Council did not understand, something that made all conventional technology stop working. Ships lost power, weapons failed, shields collapsed. Everything just stopped, but human technology continued working normally. That was the terrifying part. Whatever weapon humanity had created, it affected everyone except humans. That should be impossible, but humanity had done it anyway. An old voice spoke from the back of the chamber. It belonged to a Drayan elder, one of the oldest and wisest species in the Council. The Drayan had survived for 10 million years. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They understood patterns that younger species missed. The Drayan said perhaps the Council should have listened when the humans said they would not kneel. Perhaps the Council should have paid more attention to human history before threatening them. The Drayan continued speaking. Humanity was young, barely 10,000 years from primitive caves to space travel. But humans had not spent that time learning peace. They had spent it learning war. Every generation of humans fought wars. Every century brought new weapons, more efficient ways to kill, better strategies for victory. Other species had grown civilized over millions of years. They had learned cooperation, diplomacy, trade. But humans had taken all their intelligence, all their creativity, all their innovation, and focused it on one thing: survival through combat. When the Council threatened them, the Council was not threatening merchants or philosophers. The Council was threatening warriors who had spent their entire existence perfecting the art of war. The chamber remained silent. Nobody argued with the Drayan elder. Everyone knew the old one was right. Finally, the Velk ambassador asked the important question. What should the Council do now? The Drayan answered simply. Make peace. Make peace quickly, before humanity decided to make war instead. Before humans used their weapon on other Council fleets. Before more millions died. On Earth, Chancellor Daiho walked through the gardens near the United Assembly building. Spring had arrived in Geneva. Cherry blossom trees were blooming, their pink and white flowers beautiful against the blue sky. Daiho found it strange that such beauty could exist after what humanity had just done. Admiral Gina found him there. She was still in her dress uniform. She had not slept in 3 days. Dark circles showed under her eyes, but she stood straight and proud. She reported that the Council had sent a formal request for negotiations. They were offering everything humanity had demanded. Full recognition of human sovereignty, no oversight, no restrictions on military or colonies. They wanted peace. They wanted it desperately. Daiho nodded slowly. Of course they wanted peace. Humanity had terrified them, made them understand that humans were not weak prey. He asked about human casualties in the battle. Gina's voice was carefully neutral as she answered. 8 ships had minor damage. 43 crew members were injured. Not one single human had died. Meanwhile, 3 million aliens were dead. Daiho was quiet for a long moment. He watched the cherry blossoms move in the wind. Finally, he asked Gina a question. Did that victory make her feel powerful? Gina answered honestly. No, she said. It did not make her feel powerful. It made her feel human. And she was not sure if that was a good thing anymore. Daiho understood what she meant. Humans had proven they could kill on a massive scale. They had shown the galaxy how dangerous they truly were. That knowledge would change how everyone saw humanity forever. Daiho made his decision. He told Gina to accept the Council's peace offer. But she should make one thing absolutely clear. If the Council ever threatened humanity again, the response would be far worse. The silence array was permanent. It could not be destroyed or disabled, and if necessary, humanity could extend its range to cover the entire galaxy. Gina asked if that was actually true. Could they really extend the array's range that far? Deho smiled coldly. Dr. Minho said no. It was not possible. But the council did not need to know that. Let them wonder. Let them fear. Let them believe that humanity could shut down their technology anywhere in the galaxy at any time. That fear would keep the peace better than any treaty or agreement. General Hugh arrived then. He was still wearing his combat gear, looking tired but satisfied. He reported that civilian evacuations were complete. Everyone was returning to the surface. There had been no attacks, no incidents. The council seemed to understand the message. Deho looked at both of them. The admiral who had orchestrated the greatest military victory in human history. The general who had prepared Earth's defenses and protected billions of civilians. Both had done their duty perfectly. Deho told them they had done well. All of them. Humanity had survived because they refused to accept the council's terms. They had thrived because they were willing to fight when fighting was necessary. But now came a different challenge. Now they had to figure out how to live with what they had done. Hugh asked what happened next. What was humanity's plan going forward? Deho looked up at the sky. Stars were beginning to appear in the evening light. Somewhere out there, the council was discussing peace terms. Somewhere out there, 400 species were trying to understand what had happened. Deho answered slowly. Now humanity had to live with what it had done. 3 million deaths, 15,000 ships destroyed, an entire armada obliterated. That blood was on human hands. They could justify it. They could say it was self-defense. They could argue it was necessary, but it was still blood. So now humanity had to make sure it never happened again. They had to build a lasting peace. They had to show the galaxy that humans could be more than warriors, that humans could create and cooperate and contribute. But they also had to remember that they had survived by being willing to fight. Remember that peace only lasted when people were strong enough to defend it. Remember that sometimes cold answers were necessary. Gina spoke quietly. She said the galaxy would never forget what happened at Arcturus. For better or worse, humanity had made a statement that would echo for generations. Deho nodded. She was right. The galaxy would never forget. And that was exactly the point. Fear would keep humanity safe in ways that kindness never could. The three of them stood together in the garden, watching the stars emerge. Tomorrow they would begin negotiating peace. But tonight they simply stood and remembered what they had done to earn it. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Arcturus. 3 months since humanity had shown the galaxy what cold anger looked like. Now the first official Galactic Council embassy on Earth was opening. The building was made of glass and steel, standing tall beside Lake Geneva. Inside, the Velk ambassador waited in an office overlooking the water. It was the same Velk who had delivered the original ultimatum, the same one who had demanded humanity surrender. But it looked different now. Smaller, less confident, almost nervous. Chancellor Deho entered the office. He did not knock. He did not wait to be announced. He simply walked in and sat down. The Velk's crystal body shifted through several colors. Those who studied the species would recognize it as a sign of deep respect mixed with fear. The Velk spoke first. It thanked Deho for agreeing to meet. Its voice was much softer than it had been 3 months ago. Deho replied simply. The Velk had requested this meeting. He was curious to hear what it wanted to say. The Velk hesitated. Hesitation was rare for its species. They were normally direct and confident, but not anymore. Not when dealing with humans. The Velk said it wanted to apologize. Deho raised an eyebrow. Apologize for what? The Velk explained. The council had judged humanity by their own standards. They had seen a young species with relatively primitive technology. They had assumed humans were weak. They had threatened humanity because they thought humans would simply submit like so many other species had done before. They had been completely wrong. Deho's expression did not change. He simply said yes. The council had been wrong. That was obvious now. The Velk asked if it could pose a question. Deho gave permission. The Velk asked whether humanity had ever considered accepting the ultimatum. During those 30 days of preparation, had Deho ever thought about surrendering? Deho thought for a moment before answering. Then he shook his head. No, not for 1 second. Not even when the odds seemed impossible. Humans did not surrender. That was not how they were built. Humans adapted. Humans overcame. Humans survived. That was what they did. That was who they were. The Velk asked another question. Even against impossible odds? Even when facing certain death? Deho smiled slightly. Especially against impossible odds. That was when humans performed best. That was when they achieved their greatest victories. Humans throughout history had faced impossible situations and found ways to win. This was just another example. The Velk's body shifted colors again. This time the pattern suggested understanding, perhaps even admiration. It said that many council members now feared humanity. Some species want humans banned from further space exploration. They say humans are too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent. Deho asked what the Velk personally thought. The Velk considered carefully before answering. It said that the galaxy needed humanity. The council had been stable for too long. Council species had become comfortable, weak, complacent. They had forgotten that survival required strength. That peace was not simply the absence of war, but the presence of people willing to fight for it. Humanity reminded everyone of these truths. Deho stood and walked to the window. Below, Lake Geneva stretched out peacefully. People walked along the shore. Children played. Life continued normally, as if humanity had not just killed 3 million aliens and destroyed the largest fleet ever assembled. Deho spoke without turning around. Humanity had never wanted this. Humans did not want to be the galaxy's warriors. They just wanted to exist, to grow, to explore, to live in peace. But the Council had forced their hand. The Council had threatened everything humans valued, so humans had responded. The Velk said it understood. The Council understood too. That was why they were proposing something that had never been done before in galactic history. Deho turned back to face the Velk. What proposal? The Velk explained. The Council wanted to offer humanity full membership, a seat at the Council table, equal voice with all 400 existing species. In exchange, humanity would agree to only use the silence array in self-defense, never in aggression, never to conquer others. Deho was quiet for a long time. He had not expected this. Council membership was valuable. It meant trade agreements, technology sharing, protection under galactic law, everything humanity had wanted before the crisis began. But Deho was also cautious. He told the Velk that humanity would consider the offer. But the Council needed to understand something clearly. Humans were not asking for permission to exist anymore. Those days were over. If the Council wanted peace, humanity would accept. If the Council wanted partnership, humanity was willing to discuss it. But if the Council ever threatened humanity again, what happened to the Nexar fleet would look gentle by comparison. The Velk's body pulsed with colors that suggested both understanding and fear. It said the message would be delivered exactly as stated. That evening, Deho met with his inner circle one final time. They gathered in the same room where they had made the decision to fight, rather than surrender. Admiral Gina was there. General Hayuk was there. Dr. Minho was there. The 4 people who had saved humanity. Deho told them about the Council's offer. Full membership. Equal status with all other species. Recognition and respect. Gina asked if they should accept. Yuk answered immediately. Yes, but with conditions. Humanity must keep the fleet at full strength. The silence array must remain active and ready. Humans must never forget how close they came to extinction. Strength preserved peace. Weakness invited attack, Minho agreed. Join the Council, but on human terms. As equals, never as subjects. As partners, never as servants. Humanity had earned the right to stand beside any species in the galaxy. Deho nodded slowly. That was his decision, too. Humanity would join the Galactic Council. They would work with other species to build a better galaxy. They would contribute their knowledge and skills. But they would also remain strong, remain vigilant, remain ready, because if anyone ever threatened humanity again, the response would be the same. Cold, calculated, overwhelming. Humans had taught the galaxy one lesson already. They were prepared to teach it again if necessary. Gina summed it up in 4 words. They answer coldly. The 4 of them sat together and looked at the star map on the table. It showed human territory in green, Council space in blue, unexplored regions in black. Humanity's territory was small compared to the Council's, just a few dozen systems out of millions. But size did not matter anymore. Humanity had proven that determination and intelligence could overcome numerical superiority. They had shown that a small but prepared force could defeat a massive but complacent one. Most importantly, they had established themselves as equals on the galactic stage. Not through negotiation, not through diplomacy, but through strength, through the willingness to fight when fighting was necessary, through cold answers to impossible demands. Humanity had started as prey in the eyes of the Council. Then humans had become predators when they destroyed the Nexar fleet. Now they would try to become partners, working with other species, building relationships, contributing to galactic civilization, but they would never forget the lesson they had learned. They would never forget that survival sometimes required cold answers. That peace sometimes came from the barrel of a gun. That freedom had to be defended, not just desired. The galaxy had learned something too. It had learned that humanity did not kneel, that humans did not surrender, that threats against Earth would be met with devastating force. 400 species now understood what it meant when humanity answered coldly. It meant calculation without emotion, strategy without hesitation, victory without mercy. It meant that humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and the galaxy would never be the same. Deho looked at his three companions, the admiral, the general, the scientist. Together they had faced an impossible situation and found a solution. Together they had saved humanity from extinction. Together they had changed the course of history. Now together they would guide humanity into a new era. An era where humans were respected, where Earth was safe, where the future was bright, all because they had been willing to answer coldly when the galaxy gave its last warning.